Today, we talk about one of my favorite topics, flow. Kevin is an expert on this, working with thousands of people in the workplace, and I got jealous of the fact that he got to do his PhD work with the legend of flow himself, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Kevin also reminds us that our brains are not disciplined and we need to turn off the distractions. He walks us through an important tool he developed during his PhD program that I really think can help you identify your tasks throughout the day. Remember, success is not good luck, it's good skills. So stay tuned to the end to hear how you can get access to this gift Kevin offers and develop this important skill in the work you do. Let's roll right in.
And when you have too high of a challenge and too low of a skill, you get into what Mihai talks about as anxiety. And when you have too high of a skill and too low of a challenge, you get into what he calls boredom. So you're going to find things throughout the map for in all either anxiety, boredom, or flow. And the goal is to get it closer to flow as possible. So you map everything, and it basically will help you. One, it's going to show you two things. Hey, I need 4 hours more project work and 4 hours less of routine, or 2 hours less of routine and 2 hours less of troubleshooting. And now you look at the flow diagram, and now you want to get rid of the stuff that's in high anxiety or high boredom.
All right, welcome to the Work Sucks, But I Like It podcast. Today we've got Dr. Kevin Gazzara. He's the CEO and one of the founders of Magna Leadership Solutions. He's also the co-author of the book Leader of Oz and has over 25 years of experience in management and leadership. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tony, thank you so much for sharing me with your listeners. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, walk us through how you define work today.
Boy, today is quite different than it used to be, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, kind of when I started in the industry, where things were relatively segmented. But today, I mean, work to me is kind of any time that you're doing things that are producing some type of output, whether you're in the office, whether you're remote, whether you're at home kind of lounging around. And to me, that's work. And today, as you know, the differentiation between kind of work and life and work-life balance is severely gray areaed for sure.
So how do you bring it to be more black and white with work and life balance? Like, walk us through that. So I'm an engineer and I like to think of like this work-life balance as an equation. How do you solve this kind of equation? Can it be solved? Or is it all gray?
Well, as a fellow engineer as well, I spent, got 30 years in the corporate world. In the last 18 years at Intel. So I was a product manager, uh, general manager for them. But, I think the thing that I found was um, that work-life balance really becomes incredibly important, particularly if you're a manager and you're trying to manage people, that you have to allow them to do that, which means you need to do recommendations are as you do time blocking, right? That you make sure that you manage your tasks in a way that is engaging for you. But the other thing is that you have to protect your time. I think there's too many managers that are open all the time. They want to be good team players and be available. The challenge is that, there's lots of research that talks about starting and restarting different activities and projects that you're working on. And what I find, particularly with the people that I coach, because I do a lot of executive coaching, is they make themselves available all of the time. And sometimes it's even on weekends and evenings. And, there's some managers, and particularly micromanagers, that are managing them that expect, if I send you an email at, midnight on Saturday night, that Sunday morning, you're going to be responding to it. So it's really kind of setting the boundaries, blocking work time out, particularly as you get up to the middle or senior manager, where you're a CEO. If you don't do that, you end up spending all of your time on the tactical work, more than the strategic work. And I think that's the first thing is do the time blocking and turn off all of the distractions, because you have to stay focused, right?
Love that. So you guys have on your website, I took this because I love all these kind of reports you can do and tell you about yourself. So walk us through this task quotient talent report here on your site. and I can
Oh,
share my results. You can kind of coach me here on the moment or however you want to take this.
yeah. Well, let me tell the listeners what it is, and the other thing that we're going to do at the end of the session for those that last this long listening to me is that I'm going to give you a link where you can get the report for free, where you don't normally it's a paid report, but for those that are diligent enough and resilient enough to listen, we'll give that away at the end of the session. And essentially, what it is the um, you know, there's really good research that was done by a gentleman named Bill Daniels. And what Bill found from American Training Consulting is that we do really three types of tasks. We do routine tasks, lots of email, things that have to get done in the moment, very, very predictable. And we do a certain amount of routine tasks. We do troubleshooting tasks, things that have to be done in the moment but are unpredictable, like the server goes down or computer doesn't work or client can't get access to his material, whatever that is. And then the third type of tasks we do, which are highly predictable and also have a low delay tolerance where you don't have to do them immediately, is project work. And pretty much anything that you do, whether it's at work or even at home, fits into one of those three categories. And I was a big proponent of the concept of flow for anyone that knows what that is, kind of where you have the challenge between task and relationship. I'm sorry, where you have challenge and skill. And when you have that balance where you have the right challenge and the right level of skill, you kind of get it in the zone. And when I did all my doctoral work, I wanted to prove and show that you can also add an additional layer of job satisfaction by splitting everything up into understanding what your balance is. So each one of us has one of 496 different um, balances of tasks that we can do. And what I found, because I developed this over 25 years ago, and we've used it with thousands of people and teams and individuals. And what we find is that if I can place you in a situation where you can get more that's closer to your ideal balance of routine troubleshooting and project work, that we found that we can raise your job satisfaction, we can raise your motivation, um, we raise the level of empowerment that you will feel. We can't. I was hoping that it would create flow. It contributes to flow, but it does not create flow. That was one of the hypotheses I wasn't able to prove quantitatively. And I developed this assessment tool, actually working with the guy that wrote Flow, Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. Together, we developed this assessment that you had taken. Uh, if you can really place yourself, in fact, we use this for people who are interviewing for jobs. You want to interview at a place to kind of get a deeper understanding of the three that motivate you. So why don't we do a real time? Why don't you tell me what your balance is, and then I will tell you. I'll give you, a 2-minute kind of coaching session. So, like, what the heck does that mean?
I love that, Kevin. So first, I just want to say I'm super jealous of the fact you got to work with Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I love all of his work. I'm a flow junkie, as Stephen Kotler calls it. But that's amazing. You got to work with him before he passed away. But yeah, so my report says that I'm routine 32%,
Okay.
troubleshooting 32%, and project 37%.
Okay, so you're a relatively balanced individual, right? So what that means is that if you can get those three, look, they're relatively within margin of errors. Um, if you can get those, um, in a balance that works for you, that you'll be better off, right? And so my coaching to you would be is to look at your day and look at your weeks in particular, and if you could actually structure your day and week where you can get more of the balance rather than typically. what I used to do. So I know, like, when I was in college, right, I used to, Friday was the day to block the day out to write a report or do an analysis or whatever it was, and I wasn't going to leave the dorm room for 8 hours until that was finished. And the problem is that's typically a project work, right? And each one of us has a different reference. And so what you'll find was, or what I found was, and we quantified this through the research, was that we each have a different kind of cadence. And my cadence is about 2 hours for project work, right? Sometimes it goes much longer if I'm in flow. I mean, it could go 3, 4 hours, whatever. But typically, right around 2 hours, I start wanting to go do email or pick up the phone or go get something to drink. And that's the red flag that says, oh, time to change the task that you're doing. So maybe I'll go off and do 30 minutes of email, or I'll fix that project, or I know that something is broken on a website, or whatever it is. But the key is to what we typically do is we move from one task to another, but we don't think about the type. So we might move from project to project to project, and at the end, it just feels like drudgery. So the key is to try to get a little bit more. So now when for example, if I'm developing a new program, a new leadership program, whatever, rather than having that on Fridays, because it's maybe 10 hours of work, I'll do 2 hours a day, right? And sometimes if I'm really in the zone, it'll extend a little bit longer. And sometimes if I'm not in the zone, it'll get much shorter. And that's where I'll go and do some of the on other tasks. And at the end of the day, and I would challenge anyone that's listening, as well as you yourself, Tony, is to really look at your day, and are you structuring your days where you're getting a little closer to your balance, or is it more of one type? And if you can do that, in fact, we're just finishing a pilot with a small group of individuals around the world, um, and they've been tracking the tasks that they do, and that they've been practicing it. And the key is at the end of the day to just do a little reflection of not so much about how much you've gotten done, but how did it feel, right? Do you want next day? Are you anxious to get to the next day, or you're like, "Phew, that was exhausting. I don't want to do that again." And I think what you'll find is, um, if you get closer to your balance, right, you can never get an ideal day every day, but you can certainly recognize where you have to do a little bit more of something else.
So Kevin, how do we like get that sort of discipline to recognize the task that we're in, the type of task, and to navigate from task to task? Like walk us through like the skill, if you will, right? Let's use Mihai's kind of
Yeah.
antecedents to flow here.
Yeah. So the way to do that is, first of all, I found that most people, myself included, do not have the discipline. Like, we are not disciplined because our brains are wired, for the squirrel environment. Like, oh, I see something. Oh, I'm going to go do that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, I'll go watch that YouTube video, whatever. So you have to turn off the distractions. And then the second thing that I have done is I have a coach, right? That I have somebody that I work with on a regular basis, that I block, I do the planning, I block out the week, right? And stuff's going to come up, right? So like, for example, I never block out like the first 2 hours of Monday morning. I block that out, because that's usually where all the problems hit. I can't get access to something. Can I do a session with you? I've had a problem with one of my staff members, whatever. So I block that first couple hours out on Monday morning for troubleshooting. And by the way, if nobody calls me, I've got a whole load of projects of stuff that I want to do. So I'll go and do that. So do the planning, get it as ideal as possible. Do the time blocking. On For my time blocking is, I have certain amount of times that I keep. If anybody looks at my calendar, all my clients, people I coach, people I'm working with, all have access to my calendar. But I've already blocked the time off to do the different type of work that I need to do.
Love that. So when we talk about work-life balance on your calendar, it sounds like you use a calendar. Do you actually schedule in life kind of events too, the different type of tasks? How do you balance that? How do you juggle that?
Well, we live, right next to my youngest daughter we have 2 beautiful grandkids, 1 and 3, uh, and we block out the time for them, so I know ahead of time when I'm gonna have to work with them to be available for them. So that gets blocked out, and then we have my older daughter who has a 6-year-old, and I block out time for that. So we do the blocking ahead of time, and when people are looking at my calendars, they won't see what I'm doing, but they'll see that Tuesday afternoons from 3 to 5 I'm unavailable. So that's karate sessions with the 6-year-olds. Monday mornings from 8 to 12 is with the 3 and the 1-year-olds kind of thing. So they won't be able to get access to that. And so that is really helpful. And that allows me to have, and then of course, everything shuts off at 5 o'clock uh, Pacific time. And that seems to work for me. Now, are there times like today, where I have an opportunity for a Monday podcast? Yes, of course, we can do that. So this is a little bit of a challenge. So I've knew way ahead of time, and we just work that through the schedule.
I appreciate you putting on the schedule. Definitely a pleasure so far. Can you walk us through how you use flow to build teams? Like I love the concept of flow, so you can just roll with it here.
Okay, all
I
right.
love talking about flow in the podcast.
So first of all, flow is where was retermed in the 90s of being in the zone. So people that haven't heard about flow, they've probably heard of being in the zone. And it's when if you were to draw a graph, you have the right challenge and the right skill. And what the key is when you're in flow, there's 8 different elements that contribute to creating flow or having recognize when flow happens. The biggest one is where the sense of time becomes severely distorted, right? You look up at the clock and it's midnight and you swear it's still 9 o'clock, right? That you're in flow where you actually become so immersed in the event that that everything else is shut off and you essentially become the activity and the producer of the event. So that's the first thing. And when we've matched the task quotient and flow together, what we've done is I've done it on an individual basis. But what I'll tell you is, Tony, the real value I find is doing it for teams in particular. And what we do is we have something. If anybody goes to my website magnaleadership.com and you look at some of the task quotient assessment materials there, you'll find there's case studies and so forth and how we do it. But at a very high level, what we do is, in fact, I just did one of these in Washington. We had um, organization that was pulling 3 different departments together. Now, all of a sudden, the guy that had one department now has 3, and he has to merge them together. And of course, there's lots of overlap, right? So everybody's all freaked out about their jobs going away. And I'm like, "What?" And the message is that when organizations, and I spent 18 years at Intel, the norm was like every 12 to 18 months you did a reorganization, and that always put everybody on edge. And what we do with the task quotient in combination with flow is that we create an environment where rather than doing a reorganization, we just tell them, don't do any reorgs. That freaks everybody out. Just do a rebalancing. We find is that their organizations have the right people. The thing is they're using the job titles a little bit too rigidly, and they don't allow the overlap to happen. So here's the process for everyone. It's pretty straightforward. You track all of your tasks that you do on a regular week, right? With the different projects and so forth.
How
Um,
detailed do you get? Sorry, and with the task, like how
yeah.
detailed are you getting?
So in an ideal world, your task shouldn't be the blocks of tasks that you have shouldn't be more than 8 hours, right? So say if you're working a project and it's 16 hours, figure out how do you break that out into different parts. Maybe there's 3 hours of strategic planning. There's 2 hours of actually working on the project. There's maybe 3 hours of getting engineering support, whatever it is. The finer you can break it out, the better you can disposition it. So what we do is we have them track their tasks for a normal week. We usually give them 2 weeks because there's usually a day in there that day or two in there that's unusual. I go off for training or something breaks down. They have to go off site or get on a plane, whatever it is. So you track the tasks. The next thing you do is you take the task quotient assessment. So it tells you a little bit of kind of what your ideal is. Like yours is about, a third, a third, a third. And then what you do is you identify which tasks, what you're doing currently, and then you plot it. You plot the tasks based around challenge and skill on flow. So now you have two different dimensions that are happening. You recognize, and by the way, for people that haven't done this, when you have too high of a challenge and too low of a skill, you get into what Mihaly talks about as anxiety. And when you have too high of a skill and too low of a challenge, you get into what he calls boredom. So you're going to find things throughout the map for in all either anxiety, boredom, or flow. And the goal is to get it closer to flow as possible. So you map everything, and it basically will help you. One, it's going to show you two things. One, it's going to say, hey, I need 4 hours more project work and 4 hours less of routine, or 2 hours less of routine and 2 hours less of troubleshooting. And now you look at the flow diagram, and now you want to get rid of the stuff that's in high anxiety or high boredom, right? That's the first thing you do. So you have two different vectors to look at. And then what we do is and we did this with 18 people, put everybody in a room. It's great to do it live. You can do it virtual. It's a little bit more of a logistics challenge, but you give everybody a flip chart, and what they do is they take what they've created on a 8.5 by 11 in the workbook, and then they put it on a big flip chart. And then everyone in the room gets an opportunity with the manager in the room. And then the facilitator usually runs the Excel sheet. Everyone in the room gets 5 minutes to sell. There's no buying that happens. Gets to sell anything they can sell. 2 hours of work, they can sell all 40 hours of work. Doesn't matter. It's not a bartering system. And then you capture it all in the Excel diagram. And then once you're done, all 18 people or however many people are in the group is now it's on a Google Doc. Everybody has access to it. You give them time and you say, now we want you to go and analyze and so you hear that, Tony wants to get rid of 4 hours of this kind of project and so forth. And Lisa wants to get rid of this kind of troubleshooting or whatever. And then once everybody's kind of figured out what they want to bid on, it's an auction. We begin the bidding, right? And with the manager in there, the manager can accept or decline any of the bids. Sometimes people want to bid on an 8-hour project, and they only have 4 hours, and maybe you split it up or you pair them. But the cool thing is that that you give them the opportunity. Everybody gets the opportunity to get rid of all the stuff that they don't want to do, right? And because I'm partnering with you or I'm taking over a project you don't want, but I do, there's an incentive for you to be kind of a steward, a coach for me. And it gives me the opportunity to do that learning. In the last session, in fact, I can also give you the link. In the last session that we had done in Washington with this group of 18, it was for IT managers. We were able to move 82% of the work. So we only had 17% of the work that was left. And, typically that's the highest one we've ever had, but typically it's not uncommon to move 60 to 70% of the work. And then there's usually a bucket of, quote, crap work that people don't want to do. And 100% of the time it's administrative. 100% of the time, it's all administrative work. And now what you do is you have these $150,000 design engineers or IT professionals that are off, making hotel reservations or following up on regular emails and just checking, like all kind of stuff that an admin could work. But because you don't see it and it slowly creeps into the work, what ends up happening is you instead of you've got another head count like this this manager had, is rather than hiring that $150,000 engineer, it's like, how about we hire an admin, for $50,000, right? We let them do all the work you don't want to do, and then any of the new work, because a lot of times people are giving up more than they're taking on, um, we'll give the new projects that you want to do to you instead of the new hire. So it's a win-win. Everybody's happy. There's no selling that you have to do to the individuals because they've chosen what they want to do and what they don't want to do. And it's really, it's really a fun and enlightening opportunity. And it's so amazing. Like I remember in pretty much every session I've done where somebody says, I want to bid on XYZ project. And the manager says, what? I had no idea you wanted to work on that. Yeah, I wanted to learn a little more about Linux or Windows or whatever it was, and it gives them the opportunity in a very very safe space. Just because they bid on it doesn't mean they're going to get it. But usually I mean, if somebody really wants something, most managers are pretty astute and they make that happen.
No, that's amazing. One of the things that just kind of made me think about is like when you were talking about that, it's almost like the work was diluted, and through the process of like this activity, it brought out like the big rocks, if you will, of the work that people wanted to do. They could pick the work they wanted to do. I really like that. That's a great team building activity. That's super awesome. How many times do you run that? Just out of curiosity.
I've done 1,000, 2,000 people through it. So when I had done my doctoral research and came up with this, so originally I came up with an individual model, which is the task quotient report. And then I recognized early on, in fact, there's a case study uh, for, um, uh, for also an IT organization that was at Intel. The one of the managers I was working with, him individually, he said, "Hey, I need to do a reorganization. I think this will work. What do you think? I'll let you use us for the guinea pig." And we did that. And then over the period of time that I was there for the next 7 years after I'd done the first one, probably did, I don't know, 500 or 600 people total. And now, with the other clients and stuff, probably done more than 1,000 people with it. Yeah, it's so much fun for me. It's not threatening for the manager. Although I'm going to tell you one thing, Tony, the one thing where we found where it doesn't work, right? It really works in larger organizations where people are doing similar kind of things. Like we tried to do it with a small organization, um, small company actually, where you had the engineer, you had the manufacturer manager, you had the purchasing guy, you had the HR person, and when you have very specialized roles, you can move a few of the things, but you really can't get a strong rebalance.
So what
But
size companies are we talking about then? I mean, I guess 500 plus, or what are we
no,
what are we
well,
saying?
we've
Even
done it with it.
it was
It just depends on the size of the torrent. Like we've done this, where it's really been useful is we've done this with many customer support organizations, right? And they can be small, particularly if you're just doing kind of support type of stuff. So as long as you have, I don't know, 5 to 10 people that are doing similar kind of work. It could be at all different levels, level 1, 2, and 3 in customer support or whatever. Then you can make it work. And if you have a larger organization like this manager had, which I think was around 18, that works incredibly well.
Hmm. Now, for smaller companies out there that are listening, I guess, would it still be a benefit to try this activity? There's still some there must be, right? I mean, it sounds like a really cool activity. I almost wanna try it where
Well, I would say I'd say you'd have to have you'd have to have two elements to make it work. First of all, whoever's at the top has to be open enough to be able to listen, right, and seriously consider allowing people to do things beyond what their traditional job description is, right? In fact, we wrote a book, myself and my business partner, Dr. Ali Lakhani, many years ago, called "Throw the Seats Off the Bus." Right? So many people have probably heard about Jim Collins' work on Good to Great, getting the right people in the right seats on the bus. And our philosophy, using kind of the test quotient work, has been is you want to throw the seats off the bus and fill the bus with beanbag chairs, and then throw the people in the beanbag chairs and allow their talents to kind of fill the work instead of trying to squeeze that 200-pound guy into the 100-pound seat kind of thing. And that's what normally organizations do. So as long as the senior person is open, you can certainly make it work. And you want to have an openness of the staff to be able to say, hey, we're going to go beyond traditional boundaries. So you, Mr. or Mrs. Purchasing Agent, doing some things where you're working on the floor for manufacturing, that there's a certain amount of time so you can get a little more project or troubleshooting work that really fills your talents. You have to be able to be open, even though it, quote, isn't in your job description. And as long as both parties kind of agree, hey, I'd like to have a little more breadth in my job. Yeah, you can make it work for sure.
That's awesome. So, Kevin, I'm a little hung up from what you said earlier because this thing that you've developed is really awesome. And you mentioned that it doesn't create flow, right? There was no correlation, is what you're suggesting with flow. I guess why was that? When I think of the antecedents of flow, there's, like you said, challenge the skill, you have the immediate feedback, and then clear goals. What do you think is that? Why? I mean, this sounds so great. I'm just curious why
Yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't see the
Well,
results.
since when I did my dissertation, I could either do a qualitative or a quantitative one. Having an engineering background, I really wanted to do a quantitative one. Um, because I think numbers speak more loudly. So rather than doing a qualitative and say, here, hey, here's an idea, here's all the things that I think you should use it. I had to develop the assessment. I had to run the sample, which we did. The initial sample was around 116 people. So it was big enough to get good data. And then since then, we've run, 10,000 reports, 10,000 test question reports. I had really, really hoped that you were going to get, when you run your SPSS or your mini tabs statistical analysis and you put all the dimensions in, and you push that button, you really want the little asterisks to show up of like,
Yeah,
oh,
the little
this is
p value,
statistic.
right?
Well,
Right.
you want the p-value there.
Right.
And the p-value just wasn't strong enough to say there was a cause and there was a correlation. From what I've learned for using this for 25 years in industry, I found that the two work really, really well together. They are supportive of each other, but the causal relationship is not there. And I wish, like I said, I had such high hopes. But like I said, the good news was we were able to prove there is a statistically significant correlation between if you do the right level of balance, you get motivation, higher degree of satisfaction. Doesn't necessarily guarantee higher productivity, but it does guarantee higher engagement. And then I had a second person, Dr. Holly Martin, did her dissertation on top of mine, and she did it with a manufacturing firm up in Connecticut with a bigger sample size, and she extended the research, and she found out that there was this element of empowerment. That if once you know what your balance is, that degree of how well you feel empowered is there.
So,
Uh,
Kevin, one of the things your company offers, which I think is awesome, is 360-degree feedback. Can you walk us through what that means for the audience and how that's kind of critical to the work that you do?
yeah, so we developed a tool called Easy 360 Feedback. If you go to easy360feedback.com, you can go and sign up and play with it for a week for free to see if it works. 100% customizable, all Likert scale, setting up the feedback, usually 7 minutes to set up the whole thing, start to finish. And one of the things, so Marshall Goldsmith, Tony, you probably know who Marshall Goldsmith is. He was probably one of his famous books of What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Marshall had done um, a and now research many years ago on 20,000 people, and what he found was it was the frequency of feedback more so than the intensity of feedback that changes behavior, right? So if you want behavior change, right, you really want people to start using TQ or getting into flow or rebalancing their job or doing the time blocking, all those kind of behavioral changes. What Marshall found was that if you identified the issue and you gave it to the individual and you didn't have any feedback system, or the feedback system is maybe like once a month or whatever, you could get about 4% change, which is in a behavioral world is relatively reasonable. If you condense that, so rather than having it like 1 hour a month doing the review, you did it like every 15 minutes each week, and you worked with an accountability partner. We call them capability partners. That the 4% jumped to, I think, like 42%. So there's this 10x multiplier. And I tested this at Intel as well when I was managing the HR graduate rotation program. And what I found was really interesting, that the people that were holding my staff, we paired everyone, we were holding each other accountable, were more likely to do the work, to be held accountable for something that their partner was dependent on, more so than what me as the manager told them to do. And it basically was just a reinforcement of kind of what Marshall had found.
That's cool. So when we talk about feedback, Kevin, like, can you walk us through? Because I think most people think of like, oh, I have my annual performance review, right? So what are other ways to give feedback in the workplace?
Well, there's two ways to give feedback. There's advice and encouragement. Encouragement should happen. And if you've read the book, or anybody has read the book, if you haven't, wonderful book called Breakthrough Performance by Bill Daniels, the guy that I mentioned earlier. Um, Bill talks about two types of feedback. There's encouragement, right? And there's 6 elements that he describes in the book that create encouragement. And the key with encouragement is that it needs to be provided just after it's observed, right? That's where it has the input, right? So you have to provide encouragement just after, right? And it'll be taken in a positive way, because you want people to do more of that. Conversely, you want to do advice, which is really constructive feedback to try to change behaviors. And the key with that, of what Bill found, which was really interesting to me, was that you have to do that just before it can be used. So I'll give you a good example. So you go to a presentation, one of your staff members, and he or she has an unusual tick, like where they're saying okay or yes, or doing a lot of ums and ahs, right? But the presentation is just incredible, right? Now they're going to give that presentation again. If at the end of the presentation I say to you, Tony, hey, great presentation, but you got to get rid of the ums and so forth. Even if it's with good intent, particularly if we have a good working relationship, your brain takes that as punishment.
The use of the word
Um,
"but," right? You're referring to.
well, and giving you negative
Gotcha.
feedback, right?
Sure.
This is all good, and you certainly don't want to use what we call the butt sandwich, right? But this is what you need to change. So what I would do with you is I'd say, Tony, hey, when's the next time you're giving this presentation? And you say, oh, I'm doing this for another group next Friday. Um, Thursday afternoon, at the end of the day, can I schedule 15 minutes with you? And hopefully, because I'm going to give it to you just before you can use it, and I'll say, hey, these are my observations. Now, right after you gave it, I told you all the great stuff you did. Wonderful numbers, great analysis, terrific delivery. What I'm going to give you on Thursday afternoon before you walk into the meeting next morning is I'm going to say, here's one thing that I noticed, and I wanted to make you aware of it. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you need to change it. I'm going to say, here's something that stuck with me. I thought it would be valuable. And because
Love
I'm
that.
giving it to you just before, and I'm not mixing it up, like I'm not starting with, oh, Tony, you're such a great employee, and right, and you do a great present, and I'm doing all of this, right? Your brain's going, uh-oh, Kevin's got something really bad to tell me. So the key is you don't want to be harsh with the individual. You do want to be direct. And most likely what we find is that because I'm doing it in that structured way, it takes a little bit more effort, not a whole lot more time, a little more effort, that you're more likely, one, to recognize it in a positive way, and two, actually make the change.
I love that. So one thing we say a lot, Kevin, on the show is that success is not good luck. it's good skills. And so, as we think about immediate feedback, what do you recommend to the audience to improve our ability to give feedback, that skill?
Um, Boy, well, first thing is you never have the butt sandwich, right? So if you're going to give encouragement, give only encouragement, pause, and then give the advice, the negative feedback sometime later. That's the first thing. And the second thing I'll tell you from a lot of the coach training and certifications I've done is you want to remove, in addition to removing the butt out of your vocabulary, you want to remove one other word, and the other word is why, right? And so if you did something, and what I want to say is, so why do you think that's the best approach, right? The immediacy thing. What happens is there's all the why always has some degree of judgment built into it, right? And it's potential to put someone else on the defensive. If you've got a great working relationship, I've worked with you for 10 years and we really kind of finish our sentences, it's probably not as important. Um, if I haven't done it, if I haven't created that relationship, it can, there's a potential it's going to bias what you're doing. So what I say is, so rather than saying, so why would you want to do that? What I say is, Tony, what I'd really like to understand is, tell me about the times where you've seen that this works incredibly well, right? So you want to use what or how or when, those kind of things. It gets to the same point, but it gets to it in a way that really doesn't have an underlining tone of bias.
I really appreciate that, Kevin. I'm just thinking about myself. I use the question why more of like to get them to talk. Like, why do you think this is happening? But I like what you're saying. It puts sort of this like weird tone on it, right? Of judgment. So I really, I learned something there. Thank you. Improving my skill of
Sure. Well,
feedback.
the other thing is, there's a wonderful technique called the five whys, right? And when you're trying to dig into a process question, right, of like, why did this go wrong? Why is absolutely appropriate. When you're dealing with behavioral stuff, the people can take things personally, right? That it has a potential of really misdirecting the communication in a way that you're not intended. And then the other thing is, if the other person shuts down, then I have to spend most of my time kind of trying to bring them back. So it's a lose lose for everyone.
Oh, amazing. Kevin, it's been an honor, pleasure to talk with you on this show. Where can people reach out to learn more about the task, quotient, and also the 360-degree feedback services that you provide?
Yeah, so if you can reach me at just on my email address, Kevin at magnaleadership.com, MAGNA leadership.com. And I love to talk about this stuff. I love to help people. I promise anyone that sends me an email would like to have a discussion. You will get zero sales pitch. I don't do sales pitches. Not going to try to convince you to hire me. I'm going to share the information. And if it works and you can do it yourself, great. And if you say, boy, that's great, I'd really like an expert to come and help me. Can we work together? That works as well for me. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is we're going to give away the task quotient to everyone, right?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Y'all
All right.
need to take it, those listening.
Yeah. So,
No, I appreciate
if
that.
so, I created uh, this URL for you. If you go to Magna Leader, MAGNA Leader .co, not com, and then you do / gift, all in capital letters, GIFT. It'll take you right to the assessment. Probably took, I don't know, told to take you 5 minutes to
Yeah,
finish
something
it.
like that. Yep.
Right, and
Yep. Not long
you'll
at
get your
all.
report instantaneously. You'll get a report out, and then I would tell you, look at your report and see how well you're doing of structuring your day. If you have that capability, and a lot of people say, well, this is my job, or I'm a manufacturing person, and I pretty much have to do the same thing, or have to. This is my normal day. I can't really modify that. Have a discussion with your manager because there might be something, maybe you need a little more project work to do. And there might be something that the manager, it's like, hey, I have a project. We're always worried about kind of this machine keeps breaking down. Could you maybe do some analysis for me for that? And I'll give you a day, an hour or two each day to do that. Whatever it is, you'd be surprised when people take initiative. Most managers will be pretty like, you want to do more work, you want to do more higher level work for me. Okay, I'm signed up for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Generous gift indeed. Well, again, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure, and thanks for sharing with your listeners.
As I mentioned, I took the task quotient and got coached on my results, and I recommend you do the same with this free gift Kevin offers you. Getting clear on the types of tasks you're doing is definitely going to help you get into flow and do better work. Despite what Kevin mentioned with no statistical significance for a direct correlation to flow, there's definitely another mechanism going on. And as you heard, it's all so intertwined and related. So determine with your tasks if you're balanced with routine that are predictable, troubleshooting unpredictable, and project work highly predictable in your day. Remember, success is not good luck, but good skills. And the skill today is starting to get clear on when you start to engage in a task, what type of task are you doing? And what I found really cool was that even Kevin has a coach that is helping him in life. So if you're stuck in your results after you take the task quotient, reach out to Kevin as he indicated. And with that, thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.